Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
James is that guy there in the Cabo hat. Joe is that guy there in the Giants hat. And I'm Kyle. I'm in a Disneyland hat. What up, everybody? All right. So the Jonathan Kuminga stuff is, we've been saying this for the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The smoke around Jonathan Kuminga and the Kings has just been there. It's just lingered enough that we continued talking about it. It wasn't some weird, like, oh yeah, some random person threw out a fake trade online. It's like, no, like a reporter here and a reporter there. And then you see this story where the Kings are monitoring the Kuminga situation. It's stuck around enough. And now I think very much the Kings are in pursuit of Kuminga in a sign and trade that involves some number of teams.
Yes.
I don't think there's really a question about that. That is not in question. What Golden State is willing to accept for him is, to me, the biggest question here.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're in a weird spot where Kuminga has been with their team for 4 years. He has not developed the way that they've hoped. And they're, I think, in a position where obviously they're not going to pay him. And whatever they were going to offer last year when he was extension eligible was not good enough. And then he didn't clearly do enough this season to make Golden State want to retain him on the salary that he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in a weird spot where, okay, you have this immensely talented player, but because of his restricted free agency and the salary cap, or the lack of salary cap space that you mentioned, there's not really a market for him.
Mm-hmm.
Acquiring him is going to be difficult for any team, just on the surface, not to mention that base year compensation we keep hearing about.
Yep.
Where any team has to create the space to absorb Jonathan Kuminga's $20 to $25 million a year salary that he's likely going to command, while also only sending out about half the money to Golden State that they're bringing in.
Yeah.
So it's just a really complicated thing. But Golden State, I think they're done with the Jonathan Kuminga experiment, but also they know, man, we could probably do better than Devin Carter, Dario Saric, and a protected first. So I think this is I don't think this is a solution a problem that's going to have a very quick solution. Everything you read about coming out of Golden State is that this is going to linger for a while,
mm-hmm.
because both sides, it's kind of at a stalemate, and the Warriors hold all the cards here. Because with Kuminga, I mean,
okay,
because they signed into the qualifying offer, they extended the qualifying offer, $7.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
So his options are work out a contract with the Warriors, or assuming he doesn't get traded, work out a contract with Golden State, or play this year for $7.9 million and hit unrestricted free agency with Keon Ellis next year.
Yeah, those are his options
That's
right
it.
now. Yeah, and even like Brooklyn walked into free agency with money.
Mm-hmm.
I think they spent all of that money with the Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson swap.
Yeah.
I mean, they took
Porter's
on
making way more
money. An additional like $17 million in that deal.
Yeah.
So like, look, there isn't a team who has natural cap space that can go out and sign him to an offer sheet, right? And that's a problem. It's a big time problem for him and his agent. I don't think the Warriors want him back. Everything that I've heard is that they do not, that they don't want to mess with him, that they're ready to move on, and they want to get something of value for him.
Mm-hmm.
Something of value, but here's the problem. You can't sit here as a team who has, playoff and even championship aspirations like the Warriors always do, trying to finish out the Steph Curry era with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. You can't have a player that is so incredibly talented that everyone sees how talented he is, and you just keep trying to stomp on him and force him into a position that doesn't fit him and that he doesn't want to play.
Yep.
And so there is this I haven't been a fan of watching him play. I have not. I watch Kuminga play and I look at the way that their offense is moving, and it's like that old thing when you're watching Sesame Street when you're a kid, and four of these kids are doing the same thing, and one of these kids is doing something else.
Mhm.
And so you're watching it, you're like, okay, this isn't working. Why is he not learning? And I've said this a million times that one of the biggest things that happens for a player is the moment where the light bulb goes on and he realizes that he's not Michael Jordan and he's not going to be the next NBA superstar. He might not be an all-star, and he just accepts a role that fits him and he becomes great in that role.
Aaron
Start
Gordon.
in your role. Aaron Gordon is a perfect
He is the
example.
prime example.
He came out, he was unbelievably gifted. He was a slam dunk champion multiple times. And like this guy who jumps out of the gym and does all these crazy things. When Aaron Gordon decided to become a real ball player, he went and won a championship with the Denver Nuggets.
Yep.
And became one of the most valuable pieces on that Nuggets team and in the NBA.
When Aaron Gordon hurt his hamstring in game 6 of the conference semifinals,
Yeah.
The consensus was, they're screwed.
Done.
Like, he's that vital.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
that important.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't like I said, I struggle with the Jonathan Kuminga discussion because I've watched him for 4 years in Golden State, and I saw somebody in the chatty house. I lost the chat, so apologies for missing your name here, but they said that the Warriors don't develop players; they tell them to just play around Steph. And to me, it's like, yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they won 4 titles that way.
Yep.
Jonathan Kuminga is a player that they went, hey, this guy is super duper talented. If he can do the defense, rebounding, lead the break, hit a corner 3, if he can do all those things, it elevates Golden State an immense amount. And he just never quite did those things. And so I recognize that he's not at his ceiling. This is not, I think Tobias Harris was the player I brought up earlier. If they were doing all this for Tobias Harris, it would be like, really? Like, you kind of know what you're going to get there. You know, he's a perfectly fine 3-and-D type of wing who can create a little, right? With Kuminga, you don't know what you're getting, because I think on the pro side here, again, we're going to live in some gray area. On the pro Kuminga side here for the Kings, this is the most talented player you're going to be able to trade for.
Yeah, I agree. Like right now, as you sit, and like when all of these other options that we've talked about, the point guard options, all that stuff, have never materialized, this might be the most talented player you can trade for.
And if you're just looking to get talent in your building, this is the way to do it.
Yep.
I honestly, just separate from Kuminga specifically, we were talking about Scott Perry earlier. I love that they are involved in this. I love that they have looked at Jonathan Kuminga. They draft Nick Clifford, who is kind of the archetype that we've been saying the Kings need. And then they look at Jonathan Kuminga and they go, size? Oh, he's 6'7", 6'8". Athleticism? He's got that as much as anybody in the league. Man, creates for himself off the dribble, gets to the free throw line, really good at drawing fouls. You see where the vision is. And if they go, all right, Zach LaVine's going to be on the team, DeMar DeRozan's going to be on the team, let's just lean into the ISO ball thing and hope that an expanded role motivates him to play more defense, to grab more rebounds. And maybe in that way, the Kings can land on closer to the ceiling than Golden State was ever going to land.
Yeah, so okay, first and foremost, the biggest mistake, I know a lot of people in the chat are saying how, hey, the Warriors, they've never developed anybody. I think the biggest mistake they made is that at number 7, they took Jonathan Kuminga. At number 8, Franz Wagner was sitting there. Franz Wagner has always been a player that you thought you could mold into something different. He looked like a power forward to me at the college level, but he's worked on his body. He's made himself into a really, really good small forward, right? If they would have drafted Franz Wagner, they probably would still be, they would still be a team that we considered like title contention. But they didn't, right? And so when you're looking at Kuminga, the problem is you're getting a kid who's super raw coming into the league, right? He just finished his 4th year and he's 22 years old.
Crazy.
Yeah, he turns 23 like he's like
October?
Like a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months. Yeah, let's see. October 6th, he turns 23. Like, this kid is so young. And we've talked about this. He's younger than any of the Kings draft picks in the last 3 years. Right now. Today, he's younger than them.
So crazy.
I mean, seriously, he's
Yeah.
younger than Devin Carter. He's younger than Keegan Murray. He's younger than Nick Clifford.
Yeah.
Or Renault.
Yeah.
He's younger than all of them.
That's so wild.
So here's the one like avenue. I have been like very clear. I'm not a fan of watching him play.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where I'm going to kind of diverge and say I hate watching him play for the Golden State Warriors because he keeps trying to do things that don't make any sense for the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
It's very basic.
Yeah.
You need to follow some basic rules, and one of those rules is give the ball to Steph. He'll give it back to you, but give the ball to Steph and let him do his thing. I think there is a way in which he comes to Sacramento and they take off of those constraints because they don't have Steph, and they say, okay, kid, what do you got?
Sure.
If you think you're a star, you got a season. Go show us you're a star.
That's it.
And not only show us that you're a star, but show us a star that can win.
Yep.
And if that's what happens, that I believe it's a way in which if you're trying to make him into Aaron Gordon and you can't get that done, and he ends up being Blake Griffin, and you're sitting here wasting all your time trying to make him into Aaron Gordon, and he's really Blake Griffin.
That's it.
You might have made the mistake as a team yourself.
Yep.
And if he can be that player, then maybe.
So this is what
it's
I've
worth
been,
a gamble.
This is what I've been saying. If you're going to do that, if you're going to say we've identified Jonathan Kuminga as a player we need, then you have to let him try to be the player he thinks he is. Because he might be. We don't know yet. I don't say he thinks he is as a slight. The player he wants to be. He told Anthony Slater, like, I want to be that guy for a team. And frankly, I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing when he was drafted number 7 overall in 2022, he was kind of told, hey, this Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson thing is winding down. You're next. And then they won a title in 2022, and Steph Curry carried them to that title. And then he continued to be good, Steph, in 2023. And then he continued to be good in 2024. And so all of a sudden, this teardown that Golden State thought they had coming and this transition to the Jonathan Kuminga era didn't happen. Because, oh, shoot, the Steph Curry thing is still happening, and you can't get rid of him. So let's try and fit Jonathan Kuminga with him. And he never did. So I don't think that I agree with you. If you're going to take this gamble, then you have to say you're the guy. You're not acquiring Jonathan Kuminga to be your 3rd or 4th option and wing depth. You're acquiring Jonathan Kuminga to be your starting 3 or 4.
Oh, yeah.
And you're acquiring Jonathan Kuminga to, in crunch time, have the ball in his hands. And you're acquiring Jonathan Kuminga to try and score 25 to 30 points a night.
Yep.
And hopefully, in the process, you get, because we've seen flashes where he's guarding Jason Tatum credibly one-on-one. We've seen him have incredible moments as a rebounder where he's leading the break and he's making a great pass, and you're like, oh my God. But it's the consistency of that. So if you're going to make this gamble, if you're going to make this acquisition, then it cannot be, oh, well, he wouldn't fit into that role in Golden State. He'll do it in Sacramento, though.
Nope.
It's not.
Yeah.
Maybe eventually, but you got to give him the runway to be that dude first.
Yeah, I don't think I need him to be my 1A. He is a starter. He is playing 35 minutes a night. He's got to get better defensively and rotations and everything else. But what I am saying is that you're going to be like my 2nd, 3rd option right away. And there's a potential for you to be the guy. And if you keep developing, you can be the guy. But I mean, there's a runway in Sacramento where in the right situation, he could be a 20-point per game scorer in year 1. And you'd almost expect it.
I would be, if you're acquiring Jonathan Kuminga, he's scoring 20 points a night.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to try and pigeonhole him into a role he doesn't want to play, in which case you're making the exact same mistake Golden State did. I thought Tim Legler, who I respect very much, an NBA analyst on ESPN, he talked about this on ESPN. On NBA Today. I could not think of the freaking name of the show. He talked about this on NBA Today. And I thought he made some really compelling points here about why Kuminga going to another team could benefit him and the team that he's going to.
Okay, play this out for me, Legs.
Yeah, listen, I think personally at this point, I think that the Warriors need Jonathan Kuminga more than he needs them. And here's what I mean by that. Where are the athletes on this team? He does represent an athletic wing. The guy does have something from a skill standpoint and just a physical standpoint they don't have on their roster. I understand he's got warts. I know that. They wish he was a little bit more locked in, like defensively with his concentration. They wish that he was more consistent with his rebounding effort. I get all of that. The guy has played almost 6,000 minutes for the Golden State Warriors, and he's still auditioning. I think at some point you've got to come to the realization it's not going to happen for him in Golden State, where he's going to break through. And guess what? It might not happen somewhere else either, but I think Jonathan Kuminga, to find out, I think he needs to go somewhere where he doesn't have such cynicism looking at him all the time,
right,
waiting for the bad habits to crop themselves so he can go back to the bench. That's what I mean by that. They need him. They need the physical specimen that he is. He needs a fresh start somewhere else to see what this guy can actually become in this game.
And
that's spot on to me.
Yep.
Tim Legler, if you don't agree with me or James, it's hard to argue with freaking Legs.
Well, that and like, look, I think that there's a possibility that it doesn't happen for him. Like, I think that's the biggest point that Legler has there. That like, hey, just because he does go somewhere else, it doesn't, he might not figure it out. Soren in the chat brought up Aaron Gordon and compared him to Derek Williams. That's exactly what we're talking about. Derek Williams, like AKA the Coke machine, never ever figured out how to be anything other than what he thought he should have been, which was a superstar. He walked around thinking he was a superstar, and I've seen a bunch of them. Jabari Parker thought he was a superstar.
Yeah, this is not unique to Jonathan Kuminga.
No, averaging 8 points a game or 4 points a game for the Kings off the bench, he still thought he was a superstar. And you're just looking around like, hey, man, are you going to figure it out? And the answer is no. A lot of them don't, but Kuminga might. He might have just been in the absolute worst place for him ever to start his career. And I do stand corrected. Maxime Reynaud is younger than Jonathan Kuminga by like 3 months.
Oh, well then let's re-rack the show from the top and redo this.
6 months.
We always appreciate a correction though, for sure. Thank you to whoever did that. I think the gamble is worth it if you're ready to give him that runway. And if you can make that gamble for the price of Devin Carter and Dario Saric and a protected first,
or a pair of seconds,
or a couple of second round picks, like, yeah, man, if that deal's out there, I can't sit here, regardless of what I think about Jonathan Kuminga in his fit with Golden State. He is immensely talented, size, athleticism, all the things we talk about. I can't sit here and go, you need size, you need athleticism, you need to take a risk, you need to make a massive move, you need to take a swing. And then when a swing is there that checks all of those boxes, I can't then say, well, hang on, not that one.
Yeah.
So I love that Scott Perry identified a player with the size and athleticism and skill set that we have been talking about the Kings needing, and he is trying to make that deal happen. Whether he does or not, TBD, but the fact that they're involved and not just going, no, that's not our type of guy. Anyways, like, no, he might be. And you got to take a risk. You got to take a gamble. I love that that's what Scott Perry's doing. We got to step aside. We'll have more Kings offseason coming up here in a moment. I'm interested in something that Brett